a lot of it's having like a get to rather than a have to mentality. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I get to help out with another sport, or I
Hmm.
get to take on another sport, or I get
That's
to
huge.
cover for someone else.
I
You
love
know,
that.
these are all opportunities, rather than extra things on your plate that makes life harder.
Hey y'all, thanks again for checking in to another Coaches Q&A. I have a longtime friend, Mary Kate Feit, with me today. She is currently the assistant professor for exercise science and associate director for strength and conditioning at Springfield College. So we're pumped to have her on today. MK, why don't you tell those people that don't know much about you, kind of what you're about, what you're doing, and kind of where you came from.
Sure. I guess I'll start from the beginning and then work my way up. I often say I'm the luckiest person in strength and conditioning. I walked into a gym and started training when I was 13, and it happened to be under Mike Boyle. And I didn't know who he was. I was just told by the director of my soccer program, hey, you should go train here. So I started training there. I was working for Mike before I had a license. So I literally grew up coaching, which was really awesome. I got recruited to play soccer at Holy Cross, so I went there and was really lucky. Coach Jeff Oliver was my strength coach. He spent a lot of time investing in me and my future. And then I decided at that point I was a bio major. I knew I wanted to be a strength coach, but I really got sucked into that 18-year-old dream of playing Division I soccer. So I went that path, and while I was there, I knew I was going to be headed towards the weight room. So I got a good background in bio before heading to do my master's at Springfield College. Spent about 2.5 years there before getting a call to take a job at Iowa. So I dropped out of grad school, left, packed up my two-door Ford Mustang, and drove everything I owned to Iowa. When I was an hour away from arriving, I found out I had a place to live, which was great. So it took me about a year to finish my master's, but I was at the University of Iowa for just under a year, and then I was at the University of Louisville for over 3 years. So that's kind of my experience in collegiate strength and conditioning. At that point, my husband and I were getting married. We'd been apart for about a year and a half, and he was working in the NFL, so his paycheck was a little bit bigger than mine. So we decided I would move to North Carolina with him. We were in North Carolina for just under a year before we decided to open up a private sector facility with another couple in New Jersey. So we ran Reach Your Potential training in New Jersey for about 5 or 6 years before I kind of got the itch that I wanted to do something else. I was the director of our adult program there, which was awesome. We had 2 kids while we were there. It provided us a lot of flexibility. I shifted to adults because of daycare hours, so it made more sense for me to work the beginning half of the day and my husband to work the second half of the day. And that way we really limited the hours to just for exposure for the kids and socialization rather than them having to be in daycare all day. And that was important to us. So it was a really great experience being there, but I wasn't doing what my passion was, which is developing people. My adults, they were developed, they were already there for most of them, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so I started thinking, what else could I do? And that's when I started talking to Dr. Brian Thompson, and decided to go back to Springfield. So 2.5 years ago, I went back to Springfield College to do my doctorate. So my PhD is going to be in teaching and administration through the phys ed department, which is really cool, learning about kind of the art and the science of teaching and how to manage people. And then a little earlier than I expected, Springfield College had a position open up, and I applied for it and I got it. So for the last year, I've been a full-time student as well as a full-time faculty member, which, just to give you a little background about what the last 2.5 years has looked like. My husband, Adam Feit, works full-time for Precision Nutrition. He's also getting his doctorate in sports psychology. I'm working full-time as a professor at Springfield College. I'm also getting my doctorate in teaching and admin, and we have a 5 and a 7-year-old. So it has been a wild ride. A challenge, but it's been really fun. And personally, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm growing, I'm developing, I'm influencing people around me. So it's been a journey to get here. I never thought I would end up in higher ed when I started. I was a coach, and that's all I saw myself being. But things things developed and they changed over time. And now back at Springfield, like you said, I'm a professor there, but I also help oversee the strength and conditioning department, working with our awesome graduate assistant strength coaches. So I'm still back there in the weight room, not as much. I'm more in the classroom than I am in the weight room, but I'm very much involved in that strength and conditioning aspect as well. So it's kind of the best of both worlds at this point.
That's awesome. I mean, thank you so much for taking us through your journey. And I think it's obvious, like you said, it's nothing short of challenges. I don't think when I started off, like I thought I was the coach through and through, and here I am in a completely different position, but still in the industry. And it's amazing that if you're willing and to kind of embrace that uncertainty and you're willing to kind of just take that leap of faith, it's amazing. And really, I mean, as corny as it sounds, kind of listen to your heart, right? So like really kind of listen and see kind of where it takes you and know that like you're made for more. But kind of before we get into that, can you talk about, obviously you were very lucky coming up, the fact that you started off with Mike Boyle being your strength coach. And then, you mentioned, an hour before you got to Iowa, you found a place to live, stuff like that. I mean, yes, those are lucky, but can you talk about maybe a few opportunities that you took advantage of to then set yourself up for success during this journey?
Sure. I think even at the beginning when I was working at Boyle's, they'd make jokes about, the interns like hide. It was a lot of hours, right? We would get there, maybe not my first year once I was, old enough to drive a car. I would get there by 7:30 in the morning and I was out at like 9 at night. We would have a 2-hour break in the middle of the day to work out, so it was a lot of hours. And there were people that would be missing at different times of the day because they needed extra breaks. And I can remember getting sat down and told, you need to take more breaks. Like you are coaching too much. Like go take 20 minutes, get some water, eat something. Because we were allowed to eat on the floor. I would eat on the floor so that I could keep coaching, and I had a friend, Caitlin, and we used to compete to see who could coach the most people in one day. And I think just that mentality at such, like a young age, that kind of carried me through my life, and like I was always having to get told, take a break, rest, you know what I mean? And so for me, by the time I got to do my GA position during the summers, I was working, 12, 14-hour days, with a time to work out in the middle, but I was coaching and coaching and coaching. And, it's kind of like a factory there, right? You finish one group, you jump into the next, and I loved that, and then when I was at Springfield College, very similar. I had 5 teams by the time I was in my second year. I took over the football team. I was the first female in charge of football there. I would help out teaching classes. I had up to 8 personal training clients at one time. I mean, you look at my calendar when I was in grad school and it was, again, crazy. Like obnoxiously busy. And I loved coaching so much that I just asked for more all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that has always helped, even now doing my doctorate. We'll talk about the current situation in a little bit, but, a lot of people are stressed about how life has changed right now. For me, it's just more chaos. You know what I mean? Within my household, with my family structure and work structure, it's just more hard work. You know what I mean? And I think just that mentality of loving what I do and, being always willing to do more,
Yeah. And I think sorry. I think it's huge, especially for younger coaches to hear that, because you have a certain lifespan at every stage of your career, especially in strength and conditioning. And even though your plate is tremendously full right now, it looks very different than what it did when it was tremendously full when you were a GA or you're just starting off, right? There are different colors on there. There's different, completely different avenues that you are down, right? But I think it's so important for younger coaches to realize that when you are younger in this industry, it's about like soaking it all up, trying to take advantage of every opportunity, doing more to serve, and just kind of get saturated in anything and everything that involves the industry within the industry, and knowing that that's going to pay off someday. And it's like, if you had not gone through all of that with that high volume work schedule, who's to say that you would have ever been as successful as you are right now, And so I think that's a big thing that, I think far too many younger coaches, sometimes they get stuck in the books, right? And sometimes it's too much of this or too much of that. And it's just like, hey, if as long as you can find a way to, level the playing field for multiple things and still show up every day and kick ass and be involved and do the extra and do the little things like as perfect as you can, like that's what's going to shape you. That's what's going to get you noticed. That's what's going, to take you farther down the line.
Well, I think a lot of it's having like a get to rather than a have to mentality. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I get to help out with another sport, or I get to take on another sport, or I get to cover for someone else.
I love that.
These are all opportunities, rather than extra things on your plate that makes life harder.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I love that. I've never heard that before. You and Adam, I mean, sometimes you guys have the best one-liners, and I swear I take them with me forever.
I don't know if I can be compared to Adam's one-liners, but I'll take it.
Well, no, I mean, heck, you just created a big one in my book, and I think that's massive. Get to versus have to. Now, that's for our young coaches out there. Like, think of it, right? Change your perspective. I think that's the hardest thing as a young coach or a young professional is having a broader perspective of what's going on, right? I think we're so so consumed in ourselves in the beginning. And it's just like, okay, wait a second, take a step back, have a broader perspective. So really learn how to change even your own verbiage with you're getting to do this versus you're having to do that. Now, can you talk about at one point in your career where that starts to change and you have to start, standing up for yourself? Because I'm sure you've dealt with challenges and, it's not just women, it's men too in the industry where there comes a point in your career where you have to put your foot down and say, no, I'm not doing this. Like I am being overworked or this isn't fair. Like I should be doing X, Y, and Z instead. Like, can you talk about that transition?
Yeah. So I actually don't think I'm the best example of this, not just because I'm not good at saying no, but, as when I left collegiate strength and conditioning, that was before this stuff. When I was at Louisville, Adam and I, we got engaged after he left. He was at Eastern Michigan when we got engaged, but we were dating and we were living the same life. We biked to work, right? And sometimes we would see each other in the middle of the day to work out, and then sometimes we wouldn't see each other till after dinner. We were both working that same schedule, so that was so much of our norm that it didn't even really bother us at the time. Once we were running Ripped and kids came in, right? That's when we really had to prioritize what we needed to be happy and to be comfortable as parents, right? And that's when I kind of had to look at my schedule and his schedule and our days. And, I was lucky. My mom raised me, and she was a teacher, right? So sometimes I needed someone to help out, watch me right before school and right after school, but otherwise she was there. You know what I mean? So for me, that's what I wanted as a parent, and I think everyone has to decide what they want as a parent. But for me, that was important to me. And with our young kids, I wanted one of us there most of the time. So that's when, I decided, even though I loved my adults, they were great, but that wasn't my passion. But at that point, that made more sense for our family. So I think, and if you look at my resume, you can tell exactly when my children were born, right? You can tell exactly when my son was born until my daughter was 4, things slowed down, I wasn't presenting as much. I wasn't, writing as much. I kind of took my career and I was working 5 a.m. till noon, and that's what I wanted. And I think for me, it was more deciding, I guess, putting those boundaries almost on myself of like, what are my expectations for me right now? And am I okay kind of downsizing a little bit for a couple years to focus on what was really important for me, which was my children when they were really little, not that they're not now. But now that they're older, I'm speaking at conferences more, I'm writing more, I'm, doing my doctorate, I'm doing a lot more things, and I feel good about that. So I think it was more for me putting boundaries on myself because we're running our own business. We were able to say, okay, this is what I'm doing, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, I think that's applicable for even if you're a full-time assistant strength coach. It's the same thing. It's about learning at that point where you have to put boundaries on yourself, and you're like, I would rather try to completely invest in these 2 or 3 teams so that I can really start to develop a higher end craft with coaching or technology or, more closely that day to day, as opposed to coaching 7 or 8 teams at once. So
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head where it comes to, really looking in and kind of reflecting, right?
Yeah.
And really trying to figure out, okay, where do these boundaries sit? So you are a woman of multitudes of things going on in this industry. As hard as it may, you might be able to figure out, what is something outside of being a professor, being a coach, being a mentor, being a teacher, being a mom, being a wife. What makes MK tick? Like, what is your passion? Like outside, like if we were to, if your kids are at the babysitter and Adam's not around, besides the fact probably just lounging on the couch and breathing for the first time, you know, what is something that you would love to be doing, like outside of all of this?
Wow. So you're saying we're supposed to have hobbies?
Yeah, yeah. What I think that's what they're called. Yeah, yeah.
Those things. I think every strength coach, people ask us, like, what are your interests? What are your hobbies? And we're like, working out.
Working
And they're
out.
like, does that count?
Yeah, no, for sure.
I love learning,
Yeah,
in whatever form that learning comes. Adam and I were on the NACA podcast, and they asked us what books we were reading, and we both laughed, because right now all we read is research because we're working on our dissertations. You
yeah,
know what I mean? So I think right now I'm so in my bubble that it's hard to get outside that very much. But I
right.
love learning, and whatever learning that is. Um, I'm an introvert per se, but I love mentoring. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? And I think, again, like that's how people ask, like, how do how's teaching compared to coaching? And I'm like, it's kind of the same,
yeah,
like it's
totally.
all mentoring, you know, even though this involves my kids, I like coaching their youth sports. I like youth sports. And again, that all comes down to mentoring. So I think for me, it's just trying new challenges and being involved in mentoring others, and whatever way that, happens. It happens to have a lot to do with my job and my kids as well.
Yeah.
But I'd say that's kind of the underlying thing I'm focused on all the time.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I think it's also, you are in a time of your life where, you're getting to the end of that next chapter.
Yeah.
And, who's to say when that bubble pops and this chapter's over, like kind of what, I highly doubt your lives will ever quote unquote slow down, because you've never been those type of people. But
Once
no,
we master something, we move on to the next. So
yeah, no, yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, I've been following you guys for years now, so no, that's for certain. Let's take a kind of like a little bit of a shift, and kind of focus on, obviously, kind of the underlying reason why we're having this conversation today, and it's really about what's going on in the world around us. And can you kind of just touch on maybe how you're adjusting personally versus professionally? How does that virtual contact and connection look like with your student athletes, or your own education right now?
sure. So at Springfield College, we went to school up until spring break, and then they gave us spring break, and then they gave us a bonus week off. So we are at the conclusion of that bonus week.
Hmm.
Originally, we were hoping to go back to school at the end of this week. Obviously, that's not going to happen. So we've used that bonus week for the faculty to focus on moving our classes online. So starting Monday, we'll start teaching online. Which for me, I taught one online class before through Denver University, so I'm a little bit more familiar with how to do that. Uh, so that helped, that helped me give me a base. Obviously, a lot of my classes have different structures, so a lot of my focus right now is figuring out professionally how to run each class most effectively.
Right.
So one of my classes is overseeing people who are doing off-campus internships.
Mm.
Well, they're not anymore,
Yeah.
so I had to create kind of a curriculum that they're going to follow for the rest of the semester, taking into account that they might have materials from their sites still,
Hmm.
and then meshing it with them coming up with some professional development. I have another class that's a hands-on class in the weight room. Kind of tricky right now, right?
Yeah.
But we are going to run that class live in our living rooms. They each student runs a piece of it, and they have to figure out how to run that piece. So this week we're talking about Olympic lifts, which I'm assuming is going to happen with a lot of broomsticks.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about Olympic lifting technique and form and progressions, and we're going to be doing that in our living rooms, and it's hands-on. So people are going to have to be trying things out. But I actually think this is really good for them, because this is actually what every strength coach is going through right now, is how I write a program for my athletes in their living room, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's actually pretty applicable. You know what I mean? I have another class. This is my only undergrad class, where we are, throughout the class, they're developing their own health and fitness facility, right? So they're in small groups. So usually I, lecture, or I lead discussion for about half the class, and then they work in their small groups and I bounce around. So that one, it's more video recorded lectures. They meet with their groups, and then I bounce in, to their Zoom living rooms and, check in on the groups to see how they're doing. And then I have another class that, is mostly video recorded, with discussion boards. So all of them are running a little bit different based off what I think they need. I think it's going to go awesome, but I'll let you know at the end of next week, because we don't really know until it happens, So for me, it's been kind of a fun challenge. I like planning and developing. So that's been kind of cool, I guess. Unfortunate, the best part of teaching is seeing your students and interacting with them. So that's been hard. The other piece of my job is overseeing the strength and conditioning department, which obviously our student athletes are home now. Our GAs, so our grad students, they basically are on a 1-year interview with us. And then their second year, we put forth 5 people to be our GAs.
Right.
So these 5 people that have only had they get their teams for a year, and it's such an honor and it's such a challenge for them. And that got taken away from them. So that's really hard right now. Helping them cope with that, while still challenging them to create good programs to send home with their, student athletes. Right now we're going minimal equipment or body weight exercises until the summer program starts. And then we're going to try to transition, but it's going to depend on how things are at the time, but that's what we're planning for. So with them, it's a lot of, staff meetings, them sending me programs, me looking at them, giving them feedback, trying to support them. We got a lot of really great grad students who are looking for jobs right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not the best time to find a job. So that's, been a real struggle for them as well. Graduation just got canceled or postponed. So that dream of walking across the stage, some of them were in the middle of collecting research. They can't finish collecting, which means they can't graduate. So there's a lot going on for these students right now, that just trying to be present for them and be there for them as much as I can during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people don't realize it, but I think we have to start thinking about the psychological aspects of what's going on, because yes, us, like you and me, we're dealing with those things, but I think, of course, Meg Young was going into the science behind the frontal lobe development. Not surprised, but it's true. We're far more down our developmental line when it comes to just capacity and learning how to cope with things and stuff like that. And the 18 to 22 to 23 year olds, they're not at that stage yet. And so, it's important for us to kind of step in and say, hey, this is normal what you're feeling right now. You can be disappointed. You're almost going to go through this series of loss, right? And kind of go through all these different emotions, and that's okay, But, after you're done with these stages, what's your plan, right? What does it look like going forward? And I think they look to us about, what's that structure, and kind of guiding them a little bit, because even though we might not know what it's going to look like, we can at least give them the tools to kind of develop it on their own.
Yeah. I think a big piece has been what's the worst case scenario? You don't get a job. Are you going to live on the street? Nah, you're going to go back with your parents. Well, then what are you going to do? Well, I could probably find a job here, and I could apply here. Maybe I could do an extra internship. So kind of letting them see worst case scenario is not that bad. We're still going to be okay. Your future, your career's not over. You're going to find a job. They're all really great coaches. They're going to find them. It's just right now it's not a good hiring time, and that can be really challenging. But
yeah, absolutely. Well, let's shift to kind of the adjustment in your family dynamics. I brought up the fact that you have a whiteboard behind you, which I'm not surprised because y'all are teachers and getting your PhD done. But let's talk about a little bit about your home life right now and having a 5 and 7-year-old, but still having to do all of those wonderful things that you've previously mentioned. Kind of give us a little insight on
so the whiteboard, this is Feit Family Homeschool right there. Right? We did have that whiteboard from when we were taking a doc stats class when Adam and I would study. We purchased it for ourselves. Sometimes it's in the gym. We have a pretty well-established garage gym that sometimes we have workouts up there. Sometimes it's in here for us when we're studying. But right now it's devoted to kindergarten and second grade.
Yes.
So we are both working full time right now, and we have the kids home, and we're pretty devoted to keeping them developing and not being on a screen too much, within reason. So we're a schedule family, and it works pretty well for us. So we have breakfast at 7:30. We all do chores after. We play a family board game, and then Dad goes to work, and then the kids and I do our homeschool. We do 30 minutes learning something together. Today, that meant pulling out our old Thomas the Train tracks, building a train track, and then writing a story about our train track. So, I mean, it's fun. It's not like, strict or whatever. And then one of them goes on a learning app while I work individually with one. Macy goes to kindergarten next year, but she's very bright and she's starting to read already. So we're doing a lot of sight word stuff with her. And then they switch and she goes on a learning app and Cody comes to me. He does very well in school. He loves math. So we've been digging, he's in second grade. We've been digging into a Star Wars third grade math book and learning multiplication and division. And it's crazy the way they set stuff up now. I'm like, this is pre-algebra without the variables. Like, it's awesome. So we've been doing a lot of math. We probably have to shift our focus a little more towards English, but it's okay. Because right now I'm just kind of trying to go with what's interesting them.
Yeah.
After that, we have lunch and then we do a yoga video together every day. So anyone looking for a good kids one, Cosmic Yoga is awesome.
Nice.
So we've been doing Cosmic Yoga as a family every day. And then Adam usually takes them for PE, homeschool PE, which when it's cold, it's in the weight room in our garage. When it's warm, they're outside. Then the big part for me to do work is, so he'll do that. Then they'll do some silent reading for a little bit, and then they watch a movie every day. And that's really when they go from silent reading to the movie, that gives me a good solid 2 hours to get work done. And then after that, if it's today, it's going to be nice out. We're going to be playing outside. We're going to grill burgers. We're going to, do whatever. It's really kind of all, whatever happens after that. Yeah. So that structure really helps. So the kids aren't asking like, when do we get to watch TV? When do we get to do this? When do we, it's very clear. Yeah. Screen time's a little bit more than normal, but not too much. And they're getting that really, I think they're learning a ton, and it's been oddly fun being part of that. I'm definitely not going to homeschool my kids, but it has been kind of enjoyable to do that. Personally, my work time is often before 7:30 in the morning and after 8 p.m. and then during that movie. So there's definitely a lot of like moving things around. Right now the kids are downstairs. We have a playroom that connects to Adam's office. So they're downstairs right now. He is on a Skype call from 12 to 2 with the NFL team. So they will be back up with me, and we're actually going to go outside because we really don't want to be loud during that. So it's a lot of looking at the schedule, who's doing what, who can do what with a kid around. My schedule is a little bit more flexible than his, so I can really move stuff around, and I do pretty well doing work late at night. So it's, to be honest, the last 2.5 years getting our doctorates, it's been hard. It's been busy, and this just feels like a similar, slightly changed hard. What I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think we're doing great. We're having a lot of fun together. The kids are being really well behaved. They've been motivated to learn. I hope the weather keeps warming up because when we're outside, we're much happier. So, I mean, personally, like, things aren't easy, but they're not hard.
Yeah.
Everyone is healthy. We have plenty of food. We have electricity. We have everything we need in our house.
Yeah.
So I really can't complain. Is it complicated? Sure.
Yeah.
But I really can't complain.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I second that, and it seems as if days are a little longer, like working days are a little
Yeah.
little longer. I don't know if it's because I have video calls like during the day where you have to be plugged in, whereas in the past I've like thrown my AirPods in and I'm just walking around the house doing things, or I'm doing emails. So I think that really hit me yesterday, and again, we are also super grateful where we have an office. We could have done a bedroom, but we decided to make it into an office. And so it's a closed door. So Ryan gets to do his thing in there. He's on his staff call right now while I'm doing this in the kitchen. And it's, definitely like we're grateful. But it's kind of funny, it gets to that like 7 o'clock hour and it's like, wait a second, why are you still on the phone? Like it's supposed to be like us time now, and it's like, it's really trying to still combat those challenges where, he usually isn't home until 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. But now because it's like, we're seeing each other, but it's in passing, it's like, as like bouncing, using each other as soundboards, because obviously he has a complete different scenario that he's working through versus what I'm working through. And so, but it's like that dinner time rolls around. It's like, okay, let's bring it back down. Like, let's focus on us again. So
I guess that would be my biggest struggle is, when the kids go to bed, that means sometimes we go back to work, what I mean? So we don't have a lot of just him and I time. But we're maximizing cosmic yoga and, whatever family time we have. And, I'm trying to get ahead on stuff right now. I'm hoping to do my dissertation defense in the near future, which will be on video call, which will be very interesting. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm trying to get ahead so that I can refocus on being a student when I need to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just all ebb and flow, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, there's a couple questions. I did not send these to you. You have to try to do one-word answers as best you can. And it's basically kind of your lifestyle right now with what's going on. So I call them my Corona fire questions. No, it's not sponsored by Corona, even though most of us probably would love one right now.
Yeah.
And it's, we'll just go at it. All right. So the first thing is, do you have a new COVID go-to breakfast?
Yes. So we both bought frozen hash browns. I stick just one in my air fryer every morning, and I am really enjoying my frozen hash brown in the air fryer every morning. And we both bought a lot of them, and we're running out. So I'm gonna have to shift.
You might have just had the best go-to breakfast so far out of all of these conversations. That's golden. All right. Okay, a new COVID activity.
Definitely cosmic yoga.
Yeah, nice.
Kids yoga has definitely been our new thing. But also, the teaching with the kids and really sitting down and going through materials.
Yeah. Okay. Any new COVID habit that you've picked up, good or bad?
Oh, we were under the impression that we were going to get in really good shape right now. There might be a little bit more extra eating going on right now. We need to dial in. Again, I think when you bulk buy food, you want to see how quickly you can get through it. I think I have a little excessive eating going on, which is I'm going to dial back.
This is the first way of getting through it is to say it out loud. So,
so I think it goes back to the hash brown. But we're getting there. We do a family workout at 4:30 every day though. So that's been a good habit I've picked up.
Awesome.
It's not a serious one. I do my own some other time, but the kids and I do a circuit and it's fun. So
nice. That's awesome. Okay. Is anything that you took advantage of or one thing that you took advantage of before COVID hit?
Oh, leaving my house.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, I was on, like I told you, I was on with Maura and she was just like, I used to really dread having to drive like 15, 20 minutes to work. I can't wait to start doing that again.
Yeah, even just we haven't been to the grocery store in a week and a half. Like even just walking around the grocery store right now seems
Yeah.
kind of like exciting and out of the norm. We're putting it off as long as we can, but I think I'll actually be excited to do that again.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And lastly, you got a ton of reading and writing and all that kind of stuff, but do you have a new COVID like TV show or movie that you're like, oh, this was awesome. Like, gotta see it.
We are obsessed with Lego Masters right now. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it's like how they have like the cooking competitions or whatever, but it's with Legos.
Yeah.
And it's become a hit in our household. I think it's on late at night on Wednesdays, so we get it on Hulu on Thursdays.
Yep.
So we're already looking forward to Lego Masters.
Yeah, it's usually right after The Masked Singer.
Oh, see?
I'm aware. I might not have kids, but I'm one at heart. So
Lego Masters is awesome. It's for everybody.
honestly, like, come on, Legos, like it's the greatest pastime of anybody's child. Like they've been around forever.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. That's awesome. Well, hey, MK, thank you so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate you fitting me in your busy schedule. And there's a ton of takeaways. I mean, with real life and just like professional development and stuff. So I'm sure our audience really appreciates you being on as well.
Okay. Thanks so much.